All right. Welcome to Press X, episode 6 of the Cold and Culture podcast. Joined today by my fellow host here, Lord Sonic.
Yes. Blessed day, everyone, and great to see you, brother. How's life?
It's been pretty good. Been a nice chill January.
Yeah, it's thankfully been a pretty calm month, all things considered.
Yeah, Xbox isn't burning down yet.
Hey, knock on wood, they're fine. Thankfully. But
Uh,
we'll get to all the good stuff with Xbox in a little bit. But what you been playing, man?
well, during a break, I've played and finished Indiana Jones,
Ooh, nice.
and then I started a bit of Star Wars Outlaws.
Awesome. I didn't finish Indiana Jones, but that's expected. I don't finish games sometimes, but what I played was really good. So I'm glad. I hope you really enjoyed it.
I'm so shocked, but glad you're playing games you enjoy.
Yeah, but I guess on my end for stuff I'm currently playing two games that you'll probably hear about at lordsofgaming.net early this week. But stuff I can talk about, I've been playing. I played a little bit of Ninja Gaiden Black 2, and it's a really solid remake.
Mm,
It's still hard as hell, but hey, it wouldn't be Ninja Gaiden if it wasn't difficult.
I'm glad you're enjoying that.
Yeah, and two other
You
games
play it
I
in Game Pass?
yeah, I have Game Pass, so why not use it?
Yeah.
And it
I'd
runs
be the
well on.
minority of people doing that, though.
I know what you're referring to. We will get to that. You know what?
It
As
just
much
broke. It just
as
broke right before we started recording, too.
as much as I will give Xbox smoke when people it's people. You know what? It's the Xbox. It's multi-platform for a reason. Let's just say that. But two other games I played. One of them is Lumin. It was two demos. One that I did previews for at Lords of Gaming. One is Luminous Nights, and the other one is Geno Kids. The former is a very Kingdom Hearts inspired game in terms of its gameplay. One moment. And the other one is a mixture of like action games, like Hi-Fi Rush, Kingdom Hearts, Devil May Cry, and they're both really solid demos. The games, who knows when they're gonna come out, but I had a lot of fun doing coverage on those games.
Yeah, but guess, do you want to go deeper, or is that all you got for what you're playing?
That's what I got for what I'm playing.
All right. I want to go a bit deeper into Indiana Jones, since, it's a big Xbox game.
Absolutely.
So I had a pretty fun time with it. I thought it didn't overstay its welcome, although the ending kind of felt a bit abrupt. Like, it could have been more. But overall, it was like a really fun stealth game. With some fun combat too. But I didn't do much of combat.
Do you think that DLC is going to kind of address what you mentioned, or
It's possible. I don't know, it just felt like they said, oh, we're going to the final location. I'm like, really? That soon? I feel like there should have been more. But
but
yeah,
hey, I'm
it was
glad you like.
paced well, so I'm not complaining about ending early. Better end early than end too late.
So you finished the game on PC or console?
I kind of did a mix of both, but mostly console.
Nice. It's great to see that at the console version was really solid. Look forward to.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I tried to play on PC, but like my PC could not handle path tracing. I feel like they need to optimize that a bit more.
Well, that's very resource intensive, I imagine. So
Yeah. I know people can do Cyberpunk path tracing pretty well, so. But I haven't tried it, but I should.
hey, maybe they'll optimize it more than with Doom. So we'll see.
maybe. And then right now, the game I've been playing the most is Red Dead Redemption 2. I've been replaying that.
Nice.
It's been 6 years, and it's like one of my favorite games, so I thought I'd revisit it.
You know, as Lord of Rockstar, you're getting ready for GTA 6, of course. So, I mean...
Of course. And KCD 2 in 8 days.
There's been a lot to discuss with that one.
Oh, yeah. We got our own section for that one. You got anything to add on, or you want to move on to the
But Indiana Jones, I can't really comment on since I didn't beat it.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't really get that far in it, but I'm really glad it did very well. And I'm really happy that the console version is really good. Because there's kind of like a whole thing with Xbox games where sometimes the console version is as good as the PC version, and other times the PC version is the superior one. So the fact that they're both kind of like very equal to each other is really nice to see.
Yep, I agree. Then let's go to our first topic, Assassin's Creed Shadows.
Oh yes, you're gonna take over for this one since I'm kind of in the dark for a lot of this.
Well, first off, it was delayed again. So one month delay is not that bad. It was delayed to March.
I mean,
kind of happy it was because KCD 2 would have taken all my time.
The February lineup, dude. Like Jesus, there's so much stuff coming out in February.
Yeah, I feel like March is a good spot for it. And they said the second delay was due to some complex rooftops. Which are like, they're still polishing stuff out. But we had some previews, and man, the game looks so much better than it did almost a year ago when we saw it in like June, I want to say.
Yeah, sounds about right. There was a lot of coverage around the Summer Games Fest for that one.
Yeah, a lot of stuff looked like it needed a lot more polish back then, but now look like what? Because I've watched hours upon hours of gameplay and preview videos, and like I would play this with the build they showed us, and they said their current build is way better than what they showed off.
That's awesome.
And then yeah, we also got a trailer for a story, which really tickled the Assassin's Creed fan in me.
I didn't see the trailer, but for the story, as an Assassin's Creed fan, did it like address the modern day stuff?
Oh, they stayed away from modern day, but people who like previewed it, they said it was like very eerie and mysterious and kind of a bit of horror vibes.
That's cool. That's cool to go in that direction for that side of the series.
They also did a trailer for the first expansion, which is free to pre-orders.
That is sick. That they're giving that away for people.
So if you were getting the game, I'd advise pre-ordering it so you get the expansion.
I will consider that.
Yeah, and the story trailer will just say, if you watch the show Shogun, it covers a lot of similar material. It's kind of about the unification of Japan, a lot of political intrigue going on. They're mixing Assassin's Creed elements with the politics of Japan at the time.
The whole Templars versus Assassin side of it must add some complexity to that whole situation.
Because basically, in this era, Portuguese people were coming to Japan, like kind of getting close with the lords. And assumedly, the Portuguese will be the Templars. So they're like playing really well in the politics, in my opinion. Then we saw a bit of Yasuke in his journey, which obviously, if you thought about this a bit more, it's not that woke if you think about it, because it's just a slave who comes to Japan and the Lord takes interest in him and wants to train him.
It never was woke to begin with, but we've kind of been over this a couple of times already.
The ironies in the trailer, the master says he's not one of us, take him back where he came from. So like he's not even a samurai at all. Yeah, but I thought it was a really good showing. Seems like a lot of positive reception, with a few content creators not being hot on it, but I know the majority really like it.
Well, I know the ones you're specifically talking about, and everyone has their own tastes. And it's just a case of...
I feel like...
Go ahead.
Games was like a different phase of AC. Like, you had what we call the Unity phase of Assassin's Creed. Was Unity Syndicate. It was like a different phase of AC. Then the other three games, which was Origins, Odyssey, Valhalla, Mirage, that's like the RPG era. This is another new era of AC where it's not exactly like the RPG games. It's mixing a lot of different elements, kind of creating this new era of AC that's a lot different than what was before.
Well, from what I gathered about the gameplay between two protagonists, you got two different games basically.
Oh yeah,
that is definitely an interesting aspect of the overall experience.
And the stealth can be very punishing if you put like hardest difficulty. Like NPCs will actually look up.
Oh wow, that's sick.
Yeah. And then like icicles in the winter will fall off and like climb on roofs.
So all that is like specifically tied to the harder difficulties?
Just the NPC, like their awareness.
Okay.
The icicle thing is part of this new system called seasons. So like in the RPG games, you can like switch between day and night easily, but in this game, like they're forcing you can't just skip time. You have to play through the moments. So like every 40-ish minutes or something, like I don't know how it works, but at a certain time, the season changes in the game, and that is when like because different seasons give you different gameplay interactions. Some seasons there's going to be more stormy weather, so the sound will be louder of the storms, which allows you to make more louder movements.
I really like that.
It's a lot of complex AI in here. And there's the shadow system where like you have a light meter and you like try to hide in the shadows.
A lot of interesting mechanics that they could potentially bring to a Splinter Cell game.
Oh yeah, they definitely took from Splinter Cell inspiration. But overall, I think it's looking up to be a really good game. I think focusing on stealth is good for them because I know I love Ghost of Tsushima, but like it doesn't have the deepest stealth mechanics. It's more of a combat-centric game.
Well, it feels like this is trying to appease like both crowds. Like you have Yosuke who has the combat system elements that you would see in Ghost, but then you have Naute. Naute, who is more focused on stealth and mechanics you would typically see in like the older Assassin's Creed games.
Oh yeah. Yeah, it's looking up to be great. And I will be there day one and cover it on this pod.
Yes, we'll see if I cover it, but
I will also be covering KCD too.
Well, Lords of Gaming has been extensively covering that one, but it looks really difficult. Very intimidating to get into.
It is very intimidating, but I think it's pretty easy to get into. You just intentionally you're not supposed to intentionally be bad at first because you're a peasant in the first one. So they want you to feel like a peasant who has no combat training. It's very hardcore immersion, like realism and all. But we'll get to KCD later.
Absolutely. But I guess the next story would be Battlefield 6 is undergoing franchise's biggest playtest ever to prevent another major disaster launch. And I remember the last big Battlefield was 2048, 42, right?
42.
42. Okay, 2042. And that had it was so like bad that I remember people playing the last gen version because it had a less player count in order to kind of get better performance. I think it was a very messy launch, and the fact that EA is looking at Battlefield and taking it very seriously for the next one, whenever it's ready to come out, is very important because you can't just have Call of Duty on the market. You got to have a nice variety of shooters and everything to kind of keep things fresh and interesting.
Oh yeah, with Vince Zampella at the helm, former creator of Call of Duty, I'm sure we're great.
That's going to go a long way. You know, that Respawn talent, even if sometimes their own games have optimization issues, they're genuinely great games.
Oh yeah.
I guess speaking of EA, we got Dragon Age. The Veilguard underperforms with the EA stock dropping 17% following disappointing sales, and it didn't meet revenue expectations. And
they got approximately 1.5 million players. Nearly 50% from the company's expectations.
And the key word is players. So they're kind of lumping in people who use the EA services, not just sales data specifically. That's the Xbox strat sometimes, that players and everything. But in all seriousness, like, I'm looking at like the Veil Guard from the perspective of somebody who was genuinely turned off by how aggressively like they were going with what some of the messages they were trying to do. It just seemed like I don't like giving ammo to the anti woke crowd, but that was one of the very few cases where you could look at Dragon Age, the Veil Guard, and be like, you know what? They were very heavy-handed with their messaging, and that I would not be surprised if that played a role in that game not hitting the sales targets that BioWare or EA really wanted them to.
I have friends who wanted to play it, and they saw this one scene, and they're like, that's too much.
It's the one scene where the person does the push-ups.
No,
right?
it was the one where they're yelling you for not telling the right pronouns.
Oh wow. Yeah, I think that was the one where they didn't.
Why are we doing? This is like a fantasy game. I don't know why we're comparing it to Modern World.
It doesn't make a lot of sense. The whole idea of fantasy is you can kind of escape from stuff that's grounded in reality, and trying to it's kind of like putting a peg in a square hole. Like, you can do it if you want to, but it's not really going to work as well as you want it to.
It's kind of like Cyberpunk and Guardians of the Galaxy. You had these funny made-up words, like these funny cuss words. Like in Guardians of the Galaxy, said "flark you" or whatever.
Yeah, so good. Those games, the Guardians game and Cyberpunk, some great writing in those games.
Yeah. Like, you want it to feel otherworldly and not so similar to our world.
Absolutely. And I guess potentially part of the reason why but this happened, but one of the director of Dragon Age of Veilguard left BioWare to pursue an opportunity that they couldn't deny. And do you think they left because of the underperformance? Or
I don't know. I feel like BioWare's a sinking ship.
I don't even know if they're gonna make the next Mass Effect at this point.
I don't know. There was a quote recently, I think this last week or something. It said, for the first time in studio history, we're going to focus on one game only with Mass Effect.
They have to, because if they don't,
hopefully the all hands on deck can kind of save them. In my mind, I see Mass Effect 4 in the vein of the spiritual successor in Exodus.
Well,
because I feel like Mass Effect World kind of wrapped nicely. To bring people back and to keep them invested, you need to do a lot right.
As someone who didn't really get into, I'm not into BioWare stuff at all, because they basically had my language for a moment. No, I'm not gonna curse. They basically didn't do Sonic justice with the DS game. I'm like, yeah, whatever. I don't screw these guys. But
now they're my goats.
But in all seriousness, like, they genuinely do make great games, and I guess we'll see if they can continue making great games, or I guess they're just hopefully they're still around, because I don't like seeing people lose their jobs.
Yeah, I like people losing their jobs, but the studio is not the same studio it was. And calling it BioWare is a farce.
It reminds me of the situation surrounding Rare, where I would love for Rare to make a Banjo game, but I know that's very stupid to expect that when they don't want to make stuff like that anymore.
They make live service slop.
Apparently, the PlayStation fans want that live service slop, so it all works out.
Sea of Thieves is fun, to be fair.
Sea of Thieves is a good game. I'm just trying to be stupid.
Everwild is what we call vaporware.
Oh my god. Well, hopefully there's an update on that.
They released a new concept art.
I really hope to wrap this up, I really hope they give some kind of update on that, because Xbox has a lot of, it feels like Everwild and Contraband are the only real question marks left in terms of what's going on. It feels like every other major project under Microsoft, we either know it's alive or we know that it's coming. It's literally those two games that we have no idea if they're doing okay or not. But speaking of, since we're talking about Xbox and things going multi-platform, Final Fantasy VII Remake Part 3 will be released on a wide range of platforms.
I have a slight little tinfoil hat theory here.
All right.
Because he says this in reference to PS6. And what I think he's a little cryptic with this quote, because I think Remake Part 3 will still be a PS5 game.
Yeah, of course. Because
people ask him, will it be like exclusive to PS6? But like, it can't be exclusive to PS6 if it comes on PS5.
I think it's that said it's going to be a cross-gen game because it's probably going to be releasing.
I would assume because they said like 3 to 4 years.
Yeah, and Rebirth just drops on PC, literally like days.
I could see like a 2027 or like how the Part 1 launched. It launched like 6 months before the next console launched.
Yeah, I could see it either being something next year, 2027.
But I do think PC day one is happening for sure.
I think PC day one, Switch 2 day one, and whenever Part 3 comes out, that is when all the 7 games are going to be coming to Xbox. Because that just makes a lot of sense to me where, like, the rumors suggest that Part 1 is coming to Xbox this year and Part 2 is coming to Xbox next year. Maybe that happens. I'm kind of more hopeful about that.
I'm trying to imagine this run on a Switch.
I mean, they got Final Fantasy VII Rebirth running on the Steam Deck. So
the Steam Deck is very much more powerful than the Switch 2.
I guess we'll see. You know, like
we'll talk about Switch 2 later, but my assumption is like it's a slightly more powerful PS4.
Hey man, you know what? Like my laptop.
And we saw how Part 1 chugged on PS4.
Rebirth definitely had performance woes, but
not Rebirth. The first part, Final Fantasy VII Remake.
It didn't run well on.
I don't know. It ran pretty fine, but there's like textures look like PS2 textures.
Oh, I know the door, the infamous door.
There's actually someone tweeting today on Twitter talking about because Rebirth was on PC now, and it's like, why is this texture like a PS2 texture? So Rebirth has the same issues on PC at least, from what I'm seeing.
Well, I tried it on PC for like a couple of minutes, and my laptop runs it at 60 frames at 1080p. So I mean, I'm happy.
And the story is ready written.
I would hope it's ready, considering that the game's probably going to be coming out, well, relatively in the next like 2 or so years.
To their credit, they said they're even able to release this game pretty quickly and rapidly because they have a lot of high key talent in the studio, and like they didn't lose a lot of people, so like everybody knows what they're doing.
Yeah, because like
there's like really good organization management.
Square Enix knows how important like this sub-series of Final Fantasy is. They need to make sure that all 3 parts come out on time and that they're all high quality. So they're going to do what they can to make sure all the staff is in the same building. So that makes a lot of sense to me.
No one leaving, you know. They're switching engines though to UE5, I think.
Part of me hopes not, because they could just kind of keep what they have going and you make sure everything runs well. I
don't know. I felt it was a bit lacking. I feel like UE5 they can benefit visually.
Well, I mean, we've seen that. We'll get to it in a little bit, but we've seen that with something like Ninja Gaiden 2 Black. Like Unreal Engine 5 is just like a rapper doing the graphic stuff, and it looks gorgeous on Series X. So you're not wrong. Unreal 5 in the right hands, it could be a really good engine.
Right hands, cough avowed.
We'll get to Xbox stuff later, my good friend. I see we're being messy already, but let's move right along to the
Warner Brothers.
Yeah, the expected result of Warner Brothers not knowing what the hell they're doing. So
But there's hope.
Warner Brothers Interactive President David Haddad. I said that right?
I think so. Haddad.
President David Haddad is leaving the company, and considering how mismanaged the gaming division has been, to put it mildly, this makes a lot of sense.
I'll never forget when they show a Game of Thrones game. It looks cool, and you realize it's a mobile game.
That is just nonsense. Like, I was expecting like some type of console game too. It's like, no, mobile.
Bro, a high quality Game of Thrones RPG would be massive. Like look what Hogwarts did. If you did something similar with Game of Thrones.
I mean, I remember EA did like how Mr. Maddie mentioned this a while back, but remember that Lord of the Rings, there was a Lord of the Rings Final Fantasy X like RPG on the PS2 and Xbox back in the day.
Bro, if someone made like a Witcher 3 type Game of Thrones game, that would be massive.
Yo, that would be sick.
I'm kind of surprised they put Monolith and Wonder Woman, to be honest. I would have put them on Game of Thrones.
It's more fitting when you think of it. When you think about it,
Shadow and Warrior to Game of Thrones would be interesting.
Well, speaking of, we haven't seen Wonder Woman in God knows how long.
I have to be true. When they announced it, it was still kind of like early in production.
They shouldn't have announced it then. That's the same issue.
They wanted to hire people because they lost kind of a lot of talent.
It's the same issue that I have with something like Kingdom Hearts 4. You announce it like I think 3 years ago, over 3 years ago, and then they kind of end the tagline magic in the making.
Because internally it was always planned like for 2026 since the beginning.
For Wonder Woman?
Yeah.
Well, I guess it makes sense, but it's
the context is they had a canceled sci-fi new IP in between, so that's why they've been kind of AWOL. Then they greenlit Wonder Woman and they put the announcement out to get people to join the studio.
Makes sense, I guess, but
it makes sense. But yeah, that's why what's been happening with Monolith. So next year we'll see them, Wolverine and Wonder Woman same year possibly.
That'll be cool. Different types of like action titles. And I guess we can kind of just wrap up the Warner Brothers section with how Suicide Squad ended with, which was
shockingly
everyone's alive. All those people who died, nah, those are clones, fam. Wonder Woman, nah, she died for no reason. If you want Arkham Batman, we got him. He's around. Please stick around.
It was so obvious.
I get it, but like it's still hysterical.
It is hysterical. But reportedly they're going back to Arkham, so all will end well.
But I guess the next major topic is video game hardware sales fall 29% for 2024.
I mean, this is no shocker. Nintendo's about to boost it 29%.
Yeah, like it's gonna go up with Switch between the mighty powers of Switch 2 and Grand Theft Auto 6.
Oh yeah. And Call of Duty Black Ops 6 was the best-selling game of 24.
To no one's surprise.
And then Season 2 will be launching soon with 5 new maps for those interested.
Nice. I haven't played Call of Duty in a while. Miles won't play since I haven't installed on the Xbox. Thanks to Game Pass.
Good old Game Pass.
Yes.
I play on the good old PlayStation.
It's the same thing. It runs the same.
Yeah, it does.
But
see, I don't have to pay for a Game Pass stuff I don't need.
I'm locked in until 2027, so I'm good. But speaking of funny things,
2027.
Yes, speaking of funny things, we have a GTA parody game called Grand Taken Ages is launching on Steam.
It was on the PlayStation Store as well.
I'm not sure what this is.
It's just like someone who was like having a laugh, decided to launch this parody. I don't even think it's gonna be a game.
It's probably just gonna be like some type of like asset flip or some type of like little small little sandbox or something.
Oh, you got pulled from the PlayStation Store.
Not surprised. Rockstar's like, what are you doing, fam? This is nonsense. Get this out of here.
I just thought it was a funny story.
That is funny. It is taking ages. Excuse me, but I guess Rockstar, when they just funnel every single studio into Grand Theft Auto instead of making things like Bully 2, it is what it is.
Yeah, and they make masterpieces.
Yes.
Red Dead 2 sound like 60 million plus units.
And it's again a lot of players right now thanks to the recent PC sales.
Yeah, it's not that I'm kind of shocked that Red Dead does that well because Grand Theft Auto sells by its name, but Red Dead 2 is kind of like a newer franchise, and it's so good.
It's quality. Like, look,
Yeah.
I'm not like a modern like Rockstar person, but like, I'm not gonna sit here and deny that their newest stuff isn't good. Their newest stuff is genuinely great experiences.
Oh yeah. And then let's go to China for a bit.
Oh yes.
Blade Zero received a new gameplay trailer.
And I still can't believe that's real gameplay.
Maybe a little optimized better than Wukong.
Yes, hopefully, man. Like, PlayStation scooping up all these great action titles, and it's like you gotta.
It is not a Souls-like, by the way. It has Souls-like level design, but combat will be like DMC.
Thank you. I'm sorry, but I'm not into Souls likes.
Neither am I.
That's part of the reason why I'm enjoying Ninja Gaiden Black 2 right now. It's on a Souls.
To be honest, it looks good, but I'm kind of tired of this fantasy horror type thing. Like, just like.
Oh yeah, like the whole Liza P like look, right?
Yeah. Like it's just based purely in gameplay, not really strong narrative. I don't know. We're starting to feel kind of reminds me of the GTA clone era, where a lot of games are very similar.
People can make the games they want to make as long as they're quality. I don't mind.
I just prefer variety. We have some genres that are very underrepresented.
That is true.
Like stealth. Stealth is very, very ghost town.
Hey, you know what? Indiana Jones is a return to that kind of. So that's very good.
Shadows is what pushes me for it, because they're doing some vicious stealth stuff. Indiana Jones is like a different type of stealth. Compare it more to like a Hitman.
Yeah.
But let's go to one of our big topics.
Oh yes, you take.
I'm going to cover the news stories before we go to the previews.
Okay.
So Kingdom's Deliverance 2 has a post-launch roadmap.
Very sizable amount of like content on the way.
Yeah, like haircuts.
What do you mean? You don't need hair.
This is the one without hair.
Yes, you don't need hair. It's good. It's good.
But yeah, DLC will be good, I'm sure, because I enjoyed the first one's DLC.
Can you describe the first one? What they did with DLC? As someone who doesn't really know most of this.
So one of the DLCs was like they added content to the main story, basically.
Okay.
So there's like these couple missions that like they take place right after the prologue, but like right before the player like gets released in the world. So like added to the main story, like giving the characters a different perspective during that point.
That's a really interesting way to go about adding new content without disrupting like the narrative of the main campaign.
And then the other DLCs were like post game, so like you get your hometown or something, you have to like get a lot of resources and money, like you'd be building at the town.
That's really cool.
I didn't really get into that one because it seemed kind of grindy and tedious, so I just skipped that. And the other one was kind of the least interesting one, where it was like you will be helping some mercenary guy get some quests.
Sounds like they had a very robust lineup of support for a while.
Oh yeah, and it was a pretty budget game. They sold 8 million units, I want to say. So they're doing pretty well.
They got their money back, thankfully.
Oh yeah. And then there's an interview with Tom McKay on becoming Henry. He's a very good character. He's one of my favorite protagonists, honestly. And then the longest script in gaming history, even surpassing Baldur's Gate, I believe.
That is insane to think about, especially with all the choices you can make in Baldur's Gate 3.
So let me give a little context. So for the first game, it kind of ended the game abruptly because one of their investors dipped and they ran out of money. So they didn't quite get to finish the story they're supposed to tell in the first one. So the second game is going to have the story of the first one, and then the whole story of the second game they planned, and then a little bit, because there is going to be no third game, so they have to conclude Henry's story. So it's going to be like a beefy, I feel like almost 100-hour game.
That's a vibe I got from like hearing the Dukes talk about the game lately. Like it seems incredibly like massive. Like just the introduction alone takes so long, and you're not really into the thick, not even into like the thick of it, of the opening until that point. Like it's a very deep game.
Yeah. So they kind of combined two games into one, and that's why it's a bit much more bigger in scope and scale.
So would you describe this as like a combination of a remake of the first game and like no?
Just to it's gotta finish, like, the first. It's kind of like a mix match of like the first. There's a lot of unfinished threads in the first one, and then the whole plot of his journey in the second one. Finally, I hear the first 2 hours are like retell the events of the first game in like a funny manner.
Okay.
Like to catch up people who haven't played the first one.
I personally think that's a good decision because a lot of people are going to be jumping in with just this one.
I feel like this is going to be what Witcher 3 was for CD Projekt Red.
Ooh, all right.
It's going to put the studio on the map.
What kind of game do you think they're going to make after this one then?
Apparently, I've heard this is the end of KCD with 2.
All right. Well, I guess they're going to eat a...
At least Henry's journey. If they do any spin-offs, that's whatever. I don't know.
I guess we'll see.
And then, of course, some culture war nonsense.
Which is nonsense we don't need to discuss.
Well, just the writer says the story straight from the claims to be nonsense. There's actually a funny troll post one of the devs did. Yeah, like, I don't know, on the Steam Reddit, on Steam or something, or the Reddit. He said Henry wasn't gay in the first one because we didn't have the budget for it.
Oh, wow. So that just kind of put the fire out of the anti-woke crowd, huh?
Yeah, but it's a bunch of nonsense mostly. The game will be great. And then we can talk about the previews.
Oh, yes. You
want to give the Iron Lord's perspective, since you know a bit more about that than me?
The Iron Lords definitely did extensive coverage on the game, and you could look on lordsofgaming.net, and there's a lot of I didn't handle that coverage, so I'm kind of in the dark in terms of every little detail about what KCD2 is kind of going into. But if you want to find out more about the game, we have extensive coverage between the Iron Lords podcast and articles written by other writers and editors on the website. But what my understanding is from listening to the Dukes discuss the game on like recent Duke episodes and Summonsign, it's a very like it's an intense game that I think I'm not gonna be that into in terms of like there's a lot of systems in place in terms of like how realistic everything is, the decisions you make, the whole skill check system where depending on dialogue choices, the whole outcome could be completely different. But it's just one of those games that is incredibly ambitious and punching way above its weight. And I'm proud of the developers to really take what they want to do with the first one and really just go full steam ahead with this new one. And when we're in an industry where talented teams don't get the funding and support to make the projects they want to make, when we get a game like this that's so hardcore niche, getting that budget, getting that attention, we got to celebrate it.
Oh, yeah. The budget has definitely been ramped up, too.
But what do you think, as someone who loves the first one?
From what I've seen, it seems like more KCD, but bigger and better. More polished out, more scope, more budget, more scale.
That's awesome.
And 60 frames, unlike the first one.
And for the competition that same month, on console, day 160 frames. That is very impressive.
Some people have finished the story. Some reviewers I've seen because it's one of their favorite stories ever.
That is awesome.
Yeah. Like we have preview titles or like cinematic masterpiece. And there's this funny title. It's called KCD's dedication to letting me be a drunk boorish oaf is so committed. It's honestly left me astounded.
That sounds good.
There's this one when it says, has me so hooked on this medieval title, I haven't even got past the opening hours.
That's the vibe I got from hearing the Dukes talk about the game. It's a very beefy game.
And a really well-written game because it's the creator of Mafia as well, who's like the lead.
Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah. So this game will be great, and can't wait to play in 8 days.
8 days. Time flies.
Oh yes.
By the time this goes live, is almost the end of January.
Yeah, it's the 26th.
Crazy.
Only 28 days in February.
Yep.
That's it for our KCD section. Got anything to add?
I wish I could add more, but as someone who never played the original and feels definitely intimidated by this sequel, I'm just gonna sit here and be happy for the people that have been looking forward to this and are very excited for it.
I'm kind of happy I've waited so late to play it because I can get the sequel so quick now.
It's good. Hey man, you played the first one, you loved it, and now you just dive into the second one
Exactly.
and really love it. God bless.
Yeah. Oh, then. Oh, great. And here's our next story. G2A's founders optimistic about gaming in 2025. The reset button has been hit.
And I guess what they're kind of referring to is what we kind of mentioned earlier with the Switch
25 being so beefy.
Well, not only that, but we have new hardware coming out, and like that's a big deal. That's a whole like new ecosystem for a lot of developers to kind of just get more people into. And
I feel like 2024 was the year of layoffs. Well, 2025 is the year where everyone's pivoting and making the right decisions to keep going.
I mean, that's kind of, we'll get to this with the PlayStation section, but it's kind of like what's happening with them right now. So
yeah, for 2024 they were pivoting a lot. They were canceling a lot of games.
And they canceled more games recently.
Which is good. Cancel it before it comes out.
Yeah.
Rather than release a dud. Concord.
What do you mean? What's a corn cod?
Oh yeah, it doesn't exist.
Yeah, it doesn't exist apparently. But yeah, speaking of games that do exist and are successful, we have Bellatra, which has been announced that it sold 5 million units, and
I have still not played it yet.
I haven't either. I haven't installed on my phone thanks to
Game Pass.
No, not Game Pass. The Apple version of it, Apple Arcade, and God bless them. It's awesome to see an indie developer get such a win like this.
Yeah. And then another victim of the culture war, Unknown 9 Awakening, which I believe didn't launch to good scores, but it looked interesting from the previews I saw. I can't comment on the game's quality, but
I didn't really follow this one.
I kind of followed it because it was like a famous Assassin's Creed director behind it. The director of Ace Unity.
I'm looking at the article right now.
It had like I believe an Indian protagonist, which attracted the culture war because female and Indian.
Oh, is it? So it's not even about the quality of the game itself. It's just
Well,
people being jerks.
apparently the quality was kind of poor as well.
Mm.
But I hear like the gameplay was like pretty unique. Because I'm looking at the Metacritic right now. Let me load this up. It was like a double A game too. It's like a brand new studio. Yeah, the Metacritic score is at 59.
Oh wow,
So
that
yeah,
is.
that was not a good launch.
I mean, what?
Like
That's a
I don't know, this
problem.
is like their first game, so it's a bit rough. But apparently there is something unique and special about it.
That's the sad thing about modern age gaming, where like you can't afford to mess up once. If
Yeah,
you mess up, you're
there
out of here.
there is no mercy. There is
There's
no
no mercy.
patience.
And that's just a bad combination of a game having minor or noticeable issues at launch, and then you kind of having an original kind of theme or tone or culture they kind of adapting to games that isn't really covered, and then you have the anti-woke crowd just kind of going, just targeting your game. And while they don't typically result in lesser sales, that doesn't help.
Yeah,
It and that doesn't reminds me a little bit of Zell, in the sense where that game was successful. That game did relatively well critically, but it's also one of those games where like it got hit unfairly because by the culture war nonsense, when it was just this man making a very emotional story.
I'm
It
just
was,
giving all these reviews and like it's people are saying it's like a rough game, but it's like a really decent game that people should try.
I'll look into it then at some point this year.
Like people say like the cast of characters are great. They're just the execution could be better. It just seems like a double A game for new studio, smaller studio, shooting beyond their possibilities.
I guess it kind of falls in the same bag that the latest Alone in the Dark game kind of fell into, where smaller team, it launched with minor issues, or well, it didn't fully stick the landing, and it just didn't do as well as it should have.
Yeah. Speaking of small teams,
We got Team Cherry basically saying we're not vaporware. Hollow Knight Silk Song is still coming out. We promise you, it still exists. It wasn't a figment of your imagination that you happened to play at some point. It just another case of you announced your thing too early. If you,
I think the thing was it was originally supposed to be a DLC.
yeah, I think that's the story too. It was supposed to be some type of like add-on to Hollow Knight, and the scope I got maybe I got like scope bloat or something, and the end result is this new project that like Microsoft has a hand in, Nintendo has a hand in, and we have no updates. So maybe this year will be a better year for the game.
Well, let's talk about some gotcha devs who got gotcha'd.
Aha, gotcha. Good one. Love it.
Genshin
Uh,
Impact deceived children. Publishers fined 20 million, which is pennies for them because they got like millions. For some of the loot boxes to teens. So yeah, Genshin Impact. The slop.
yes. But absolutely just well, not absolutely. Get like the Hoyoverse games. The problem with those games is they're genuinely good to decent experiences, but the problem is they have these paid gotcha mechanics, and it's the result is if you really want to get into the thick of it with these games, you got to spend money, and it's. I remember this when I tried playing Zenless. Then there was some really cool characters, and then it was like, oh, you can't just buy them. You got to do the gotcha elements, and I realized, oh, that's going to cost a lot of money. No, I'm out. So I'm glad that
It just
people have.
reminds me of the Game Awards when you see like you saw like an hour of anime slop.
Yep, because everyone's trying to chase after to get the success Oyoverse has. But games that aren't from Japan. We have Respawn Entertainment's Star Wars RTS game, and it supposedly will be revealed in April. As someone who you're a bigger Respawn fan than I am, what do you think?
I'm not into strategy games, so I don't really have much of a perspective. But I feel like enjoyable Respawn does Star Wars while they do, because they're about to move on.
Yeah, they have one more Star Wars game in the oven with the next Jedi title, and then they're probably gonna just either make
Because they try to make something new, but EA canceled it.
Yeah.
Licensing fees are getting high. It's probably cheap enough where it doesn't matter.
Yeah.
But those who love RTS, you should enjoy this one.
And regarding new IPs, Rebel Wolves reveals the Blood of Dawnwalker with the first
Witcher 3 Veterans. I think it includes the Witcher 3 director.
This is such a surprise. I never expected this. Like, that's really cool that the former Witcher people
There's a lot of former CD teams. Another former CD team got hired by CD to do Witcher 1 remake.
Ooh, that's cool.
So yeah. But yeah, there's a lot of spin-offs. Spin-offs are the nature of the industry. But the game looks really cool and unique.
It does.
Finally, a good vampire game after Redfall.
Redfall turned into a decent-ish game with the updates, but yes.
Yeah, they gave it a stealth animation.
They got one. But I guess speaking of you mentioned failures, we have Bungie. And Bungie's upcoming Gummy Bears and a MOBA is inspired by Smash Brothers. It is claimed. I'm not sure how to feel about this because Smash Brothers is awesome, but
I kind of think this is because right now MOBAs are really popular. Isn't what's it called? Deadlock? It's kind of like a MOBA as well.
Yeah, apparently a lot of people really like that game.
I feel like this is this genre's kind of popping off. So I think it's possible. Sony did make them their own team.
That is true. We will see how that one turns out.
Yeah. And then let's have a little good news and sad news.
Well,
there was a really interesting mod for GTA 5 called Liberty City Preservation Project, where they ported the whole map to GTA 5, which was really cool. Until Rockstar stepped in.
Yeah, Rockstar didn't want to have fun, so they took it away from people.
It's less Rockstar and Take-Two.
Yeah, it reminds me of the whole kerfuffle with Nintendo's stuff, where Nintendo took down. I remember the most infamous example.
Take-Two is still more friendly than Take-Two. I mean, Take-Two is still more friendly than Nintendo to modders.
Well, I guess you can explain why in a moment.
Because there are a lot of mods that Take-Two doesn't interfere with because they don't interfere with their business. They even acquired a modding company last year.
Mm-hmm.
One of the roleplay developers for 5M acquired him. So this former developer, he talks about how he sees it. He says, if it competes with their future projects, they're going to shut them down. But if it doesn't, then they leave them alone.
I guess that implies that Rockstar is going to bring Liberty City.
You're going to do a GTA 4 remaster as well.
That too. So it's probably going to be they're bringing that back some way, somehow. And they're like, well, we don't want to lose money. But at the same time, it's like...
I did hear that it was like a civil one. Like they didn't get DMCA. Like the devs just talked with the modders. Maybe it was like more like a friendly takedown than other previous ones.
Maybe it might be similar to what happened with the fans were making a Resident Evil 2 remake at some point, but then Capcom had talks with them, and that project was canceled. But they had a hand in helping with the Resident Evil 2 remake. So maybe this might be a similar situation.
Could be. But yeah, it seems because they're in the past, Take-Two has been pretty harsh, but this one was much more gentler, I would say.
Yeah, I remember the whole situation when the original Grand Theft Auto Definitive Edition launched, and they were very aggressive about delisting games.
Oh, yeah. Okay, and then let's talk about scope and scale.
Oh, absolutely. Former Bethesda developer suggests players are tired of massive games. Yes, you see the reactions of things like Starfield, and you have a very clear answer to that whole situation. Then again, you have games like Baldur's Gate 3 that are insanely massive, and they do well too. So maybe there's something in the middle here that developers can do for
Gamers
this.
are tired of fake length.
All right.
Starfield, I don't know, like felt much bigger than it needed to be.
Fair enough.
It didn't feel justified. There's quite a few games that blow because of money, not quite because the game story justifies it.
They want to make sure that $70 is worth it to people.
Yeah. Minecraft 2 has been announced.
Can you explain this one? I don't understand.
I'm assuming it's like one of the creators of Minecraft 2 is saying that he claims he's working on a spiritual successor. That's not with Microsoft.
Let me see.
So yeah.
Okay, well, you know what? Microsoft has the IP, and they're gonna.
This is not the same IP, so it's like a new IP.
Well, maybe it could be like Microsoft could work with him on this. I mean, they're multi-platform now, so it shouldn't be a problem.
We'll see if he likes Microsoft.
That too. But
Time
Microsoft,
to move on to our bigger stories.
yes, from Microsoft to the big blue, PlayStation.
Let's start with some saddening news.
Yes.
Ted Price, the founder of Insomniac Games and the legend, is retiring after 30-ish years, maybe even more.
He's a legend. Let's be real here. He is a legend.
He's a production mastermind. The efficiency of Insomniac needs to be studied.
Oh my god! Like from PS2, from the PlayStation 2, even PS1, arguably, all the way towards like the middle of the PS3 generation, they've released games year after year after year after year, and all those games are genuinely great experiences. Obviously, crunch was a problem, which they got better with, but Insomniac is a well-oiled machine, and they single-handedly carried the PS5 for a sizable amount of time until they went into the dark recently.
That's what kind of carried the PS3.
Yeah, absolutely. Like they were the PS3 at launch and year one with Resistance and Ratchet Tools of Destruction. It's crazy the work they've done, and as a big Ratchet and Clank fan, it's really sad to see one of the creative minds behind it just move on. But he definitely deserves this. He definitely deserves a break.
Yeah, and then let's talk about the future of Insomniac Games. He's picked 3 people have been chosen to work with Ted Price for a long time. What's interesting is these 3 people all represent a different facet of Insomniac: finance, PR and communications, and creative design. So like it feels like they all are part of balancing the different aspects of what it takes to run a studio. 2 studios technically.
Also, Insomniac has been in a very interesting situation where they've had to really recover after that horrible hack that they've got like a year or so ago, where a whole playable build of Wolverine is just out there, and I hate the fact that people bring that build up when they complain about the game, and I'm sitting here going, that's not accurate to what the game's going to be like.
I'll never forget the Just Cause 3 mod.
Oh, don't get me started on that nonsense.
But yeah, sad he's retiring, but he deserves his rest.
But PlayStation has some more somber news, but with a positive tinge to it. If you squint a little bit, PlayStation canceled live service titles from Blue Point and Ben Studios. And
Uh,
Ben Studios was original. Ben Studios project was an original one, while Blue Point was making a God of War live service.
well, there was a theory that they were doing what's it called, Siphon Filter,
That is interesting. It makes sense for all the re-releases.
because the some of the like leaked footage was like military-esque stuff, so that
It,
could have been Siphon Filter.
I mean, it doesn't line up because look at all the PlayStation Plus premium games. Like they've basically exhausted the entire Siphon Filter library for the initial like wave of that. So they've been like gearing people up for that franchise.
Oh yeah, but nonetheless, Ben says we still planning on creating cool stuff.
Of course, I would hope
And Sony says they will not shut any of the studios at this moment down.
I would hope not because it's not their fault that these games are made. It's
I mean, what's it called? London suffered the fate.
yeah, it's Herman and Herman. It's Herman's fault and it's Jimmy Bone's fault. They're both responsible for this.
Yeah, but it was kind of Jim's vision, and Herman was just supposed to support it.
Well, it doesn't matter.
And then Sony gave him, but apparently it's not a confirmed thing, but there is some speculation that Herman got bonuses or some additional funding for supporting live service.
He also has a hand in basically making Horizon like the darling from PlayStation with all the projects it's received, and it also ties into another story of one of the two. That's right, two Horizon.
This is an external project.
It was an external project, but it's like 1 to 2 multiplayer Horizon titles, which was an MMO, is canned. But the other live service Horizon game is still in development.
Yeah, that's releasing this year, I believe.
Yeah, it's probably going to be releasing this year alongside.
But the Ben one is not as disappointing as the Blue Point.
No, Blue Point. It's just disappointing in general because like a big.
It's not disappointing with Ben because we knew about Ben for months or for years.
I think the biggest disappointing aspect about all of this, you have these studios that could have been using this valuable time to make something they really wanted to make, and instead they just got kind of forced onto live service stuff that the hardcore PlayStation base is not interested in. And the end result is we're not going to see anything from Bend, we're not going to see anything from Blue Point until PS6. And that's the reality of the situation. And it is gross mismanagement. And it's a situation of PlayStation really needs to get their stuff together because.
I kind of have a different perspective here.
Well, you go then. What's your perspective?
I think it was a good idea, but the execution was totally off. First off, Blue Point is not a studios known for multiplayer. They're a studio known for remakes, remaster, or single player content in general. So like, I do understand it because technically they were a support team in God of War Ragnarok, so they thought they could also make a live service game, but it's just the wrong studio for that. And God of War is not the right IP for multiplayer.
And the thing is, they tried this on the PS3 with God of War Ascension. If you remember that. That was a multiplayer God of War game, and no one really played that multiplayer part of it at all. You just played the single-player campaign like every God of War game.
So yeah, that was kind of disappointing. But with the Ben thing is, we kind of knew that for a while, and it didn't surprise me. Taking Siphon Filter multiplayer isn't the worst idea, in my opinion.
If the thing is, PlayStation has IP that would have worked really well for multiplayer, like Killzone.
I feel like people like to fantasize about this, like Killzone, SOCOM, and all that, but like realistically, those IPs wouldn't cut it today.
Then what do you do then if you want to make a live service game?
You need a good idea or something new.
Well, clearly they tried something new with Concord, and that unalived itself before our very eyes.
Not everything new works out. It's a risk. Either make it or you don't.
That's true.
But my point is, you need to keep the right studios for this type of risk. You need studios that have strengths. Like for example, Guerrilla Games, they have experience in multiplayer.
Absolutely.
So them having a second team to make Horizon Online, nothing gross about it in my opinion. I think it's fine. Take that risk, and it doesn't interfere with Horizon 3.
I guess just too much Horizon, in my opinion.
I mean, that is true, but like, Sony is gonna, not just Sony, the industry in general is gonna be milking IPs. It's the era we're in. We're in a very expensive era where people are afraid to take risks. It's not financially feasible.
Well, since you mentioned Gorilla, they commented that they aspire to bring over 1 million players into their Horizon title.
I think it's possible.
I could see that.
I think because I don't know what the game will be like because we really haven't seen much of it, but we've seen some leaks which has a much more cartoony art style. I could imagine it to be something more like Monster Hunter, but more live service-esque. And if it's unique and fun, like Helldivers was unique and fun, then they could attract a following.
I think that will work really well because if that's the direction they're going in, like a more casual, friendly Monster Hunter game, that would be really cool because
and a different art style.
Different art
usually
style.
Sony doesn't do cartoony art styles.
No, they don't. The last, like even something like Astrobot, there's a little bit of realism in terms of like the environments you're running around. Like it's also very interesting that I feel like.
And then another thing we could connect here is this is what you should be doing. Instead of taking Bluepoint, you take someone like Jason Bludell and give him a new team.
Mm-hmm.
Take the right talent. You don't just put Bluepoint on it.
Yes. Hold on, I'm gonna mute for a moment.
But yeah, I don't think it's a bad direction per se, but it requires very proper execution. You gotta take care of these studios, make sure they have the right systems in place, the right funding, the right scope. And you need to make sure you have a monetization plan. Because one of the issues with Helldivers is it's a great launch. People bought it for 40, but its monetization isn't really long-term successful in my opinion. I don't think people really go for those bundles or battle passes. But something like a Ghost of Tsushima Legends 2 might do well as well. Because it's not, I feel like they could put more scope into that rather than God of War. And I think that's it for a live service angle. Sad that these devs' times has been wasted, but hopefully they can reprioritize. And I'm happy that Sony is pivoting their single player studios back to being single player, but we're not. They still have a foot in the pond of live service because I think multiplayer is something they should explore and not give up.
Yes, PlayStation should absolutely continue with their multiplayer initiative, but don't put all your eggs in one basket. I think that's the underlying issue that they had. They basically.
I think they kind of understood it because they had most of the studios be outside studios, except for a couple.
I feel like they should, say for Gorilla and Insomniac, don't have any of your inside studios making live service stuff and just.
I don't think Ben was a bad idea because they were kind of in an aimless direction after Day was gone.
I think they should just let them make Days Gone too.
I don't think so. I think that Days Gone 2 wasn't, I mean, it did well, but it wasn't the big hit. And it was critically, let's say, polarizing. Some people loved it, some people didn't.
I guess we'll see what happens with PlayStation's live service initiatives, but
I think he'll live on. I think Horizon Online might have a chance.
Horizon Online might have a chance, and if they continue doing well at Helldivers 2,
Marathon might be a hit. I'm not sure.
I'm not putting any expectations on Bungie. Let's just hope for the best with them. But apparently, speaking of Helldivers 2, Helldivers 2 wants for the upcoming movie, because PlayStation announced a whole slate of movies for their IPs. Helldivers 2 CEO wants A-listers to be violently killed in the movie, which is very much on brand for the Starship Troopers inspired world of Helldivers.
It'd be funny if Chris Pratt Mario died in the beginning.
So imagine he says, "It's a me," and he just dies. He doesn't even get a chance to finish saying Mario.
And then Until Dawn movie got its first trailer.
I didn't get a chance to see that. What did you see it?
I took a look. It's not bad. It's a bit different in the game. It's like a repeating loop kind of.
Ooh, that's interesting.
Yeah, so I think it might be decent. It does have a pretty good director behind it, so could be good. PlayStation Productions has been doing pretty well because the rumor on the street is they're doing a Resident Evil movie.
That is interesting. I wonder if that's going to tie into some type of PlayStation, like some game-related kind of relations with PlayStation and Capcom, or if it's just a movie thing.
It's just a movie thing. I think they're just like bidding on it to like try to buy the publishing of it and make it.
I guess with the whole situation with the Zelda movie, because I think Sony Pictures has a hand in that. Ironically,
Yeah, they're making it.
We might have Ratchet and Clank team up with Link to take down Nefarious and Ganon. Let's go.
Sony has announced a Ghost of Tsushima Legends anime. Take it away.
Yes, the perfect marriage. Let's go. Look, I know this is your franchise, but
you can keep the anime. I don't want it.
Keep the anime. Well, you know what? That's for me then. That's my ghost. That's my ghost.
Yeah, you'll finally finish something ghost related.
Yes, I'll watch the anime start to finish.
And after the Netflix show Horizon got canned due to some bad creatives behind it, they have brought it back with a movie. Instead of being made by Netflix, they're doing it themselves.
Yes. And that is very interesting that actually these are very fitting franchises for films.
It is.
Because like with Horizon, the whole premise of robotic dinosaurs running around is really cool. I'm just curious to see how they're going to handle the effects and how.
I think effects would be much easier when you have a shorter time frame, like 2 hours instead of a 10-hour show.
Maybe you might be able to do kind of like some practical effects in some form too, if possible. That would be really nice.
Mm-hmm. And now, US PS5 sales are pacing ahead of PS4, while shockingly, Xbox lags behind Xbox One.
It all started with that fateful day with the business update of January 2025, and you having a sip of water while we discuss the potential death of Xbox's brand.
Technically, it started way before that. It was
technically, but still, like
it was the final nail in the coffin.
It makes a lot of sense. It's been a consistent like thing. It started with, like you mentioned, it started with the Xbox One, but while Xbox tried to turn themselves around, at the end of the day, they are in a situation where they need profit, and because of the decision to make with Game Pass, Xbox players are not buying their games. So who's gonna buy their games? PlayStation people and PC people and Nintendo people.
Hold up. Let me just interrupt you. You said PlayStation people buying their games?
Yes.
PlayStation has almost twice as many paid players in Ninja Gaiden 2 Black as Xbox has on Game Pass.
You see the point I'm making? PlayStation people are going to buy the games. Well, Xbox players are just going to play it on Game Pass. That is their plan. And we've seen, examples like Hi-Fi Rush and Pentiment didn't do well. Something like Sea of Thieves did. Something like Grounded did. And I guarantee you, and all the hubbub and the rumors of things like Master Chief Collection, Gears, etc.
Master Chief's coming to Switch too, apparently.
Yeah. All these games, when they come to PlayStation and Switch, they will sell because guess what? There's PlayStation people who do not buy an Xbox or do not have a gaming PC, and they're not interested in buying another box because they're comfortable with their box, and they'll gladly buy the game on their box if they want to play it. Just because they find something cool doesn't mean they're going to shell out $500 for another box.
Let's hold the Xbox rent for Xbox.
Yes, I'm getting off topic. I apologize. I got this one, though, because I was in person when he said this.
Almost. It felt like an insult.
Yes. So, Reggie Fils-Aimé, the Reginator, Mr. My Body is Ready, at the New York Game Awards, which I attended and thought was a wonderful experience. He said when Astrobot was nominated multiple times and won multiple awards, he said Astrobot almost outdid Nintendo at its own game. And coming from him, that is huge praise. Because he was directly involved with the production of games like the Mario Galaxy titles, which Astrobot draws a lot of inspiration from. And a lot of Nintendo fans call Astrobot Galaxy free, basically. So that is awesome.
Yeah. Almost thing was really funny though. Almost.
Well, I mean, it makes sense why he said almost, because Astrobot just took the mechanics of Astro's Playroom and just expanded it into a full game, and there's definitely parts of Astrobot where I think they're gonna really evolve it with a second one. Like the idea of melding different power-ups together, or doing what they did in the Holiday DLC that was free, where you have all the power-ups in one area and you can just freely switch between them. I think that's going to be the next step for the series.
Well, speaking of platforming series, Ratchet & Clank, Insomniac Studio has interest in a game-to-screen adaptation. Hopefully a good one this time.
This is incredibly interesting, because Ratchet & Clank is one of those franchises that screams, we could easily make this a film. We can make this a cartoon series. We can make this a comic book.
Here's a bold idea. I have a bold idea for you.
Ooh, let's go.
Instead of outsourcing it to an animation studio, you own a very wonderful animation studio called Sony Animation, who just released a wonderful movie called Spider-Verse.
Oh, wow. Do tell. You know, Spider-Verse, they made 2 of them. The second one ended on a cliffhanger, and they said, oh, another one's coming next year. Fast forward 2 years later. So that damn cliffhanger. But
it's an ambitious idea, but use the studio you owned. They produce high-quality animation, is all I'm saying.
Jokes aside, I really think Ratchet & Clank is one of those franchises that has been adapted to a fantastic comic book run, has been adapted to a mediocre film, has been adapted to a mediocre/bad TV pilot.
TV pilot?
They made a TV pilot, yeah.
I did not know.
Yeah, and
it reminds me of that Sly Cooper show that never came out.
Yeah. Outside of Murray looking weird, I would have been down for that.
That one actually didn't look bad.
But the pilot was Ratchet & Clank Life of Pi. And it wasn't particularly great, but it was definitely a little better than the film. At the same time, though, Ratchet & Clank, I think if Insomniac had full creative control, or there was a collaborative effort like the recent Sonic films, with the production team making the film, it would have worked out really well, in my opinion. Because Ratchet & Clank is one of those franchises where you could make something really, really freaking cool with. And I can easily imagine a TV series where Ratchet gets a unique weapon every episode. Or I can imagine a movie series like the Sonic films, where the first one explores Ratchet & Clank's origins, the second one explores Ratchet & Clank, adapting something.
I'm just saying, you have a fantastic animation studio that you own that has good writing and good animation. Instead of outsourcing it to a mid-tier animation studio again.
Yeah. You know what they should do? They should give it to Disney. Hey, Disney, you can make a Ratchet film, right? You can do it. You can make it you know what? You know what? I would prefer that than the animation team making slop like they've been doing lately.
Just saying, you own a wonderful studio with wonderful talent.
I agree
Sony
with you.
Pictures Animation is right there.
No, I completely agree with you, and I hope
Don't
that.
outsource it again.
And the thing is, they fully own Ratchet and Clank. They don't share rights with Marvel/Disney for Spider-Man.
Yep.
So it would probably be a better. As much as I would like a Spider-Verse free, at the same time, it's like, if you have to make a
Hey,
hard.
they're big enough to do multiple movies.
That's true. Well,
Sony
hopefully,
Pictures. It's not an indie film studio.
fair enough. We will see what happens.
Speaking of classic franchises,
Ooh, classics.
want to take this one?
Oh, absolutely.
I
PlayStation.
know you're loving this one.
Oh yeah, PlayStation realizes that they actually own IP when they said they don't have enough IP, and they saying we are open to reviving classic franchises because I think what this translates to is, wow, people really like the cameos in Astrobot. Let's actually do something with those franchises.
Let me read the quote. The various IPs that we own are important to PlayStation, and as part of our efforts to strengthen their portfolio, we are continually looking for opportunities to leverage our past IP.
I feel like this is expected because they're probably getting positive data from Astrobot sales,
Yeah.
from engagement with PlayStation Plus, because a big reason why they haven't really jumped on something like another Ape Escape or Jack or Sly is because they don't think it's going to sell well. But now they have enough data thanks to the PlayStation Plus service that the Sly games consistently are high sellers. In addition to being
Sly is not coming back.
yeah, Sly. I think out of all the classic franchises, we will get another Sly game. The
Sly is
question,
not coming back. Sucker Punch was very, very authoritative with that message. If Sly comes back, it's with us, or it doesn't come back at all.
hey, you know what? You can. Is it too early to put that Ghost of Yaute on the back burner and fast track a Sly 4?
No.
That was great.
They're
That
done with
was.
Sly and Infamous. They've moved on. I think Chuck and Daxter can definitely be taken by a new studio.
That I think we can agree with, because Naughty Dog does not want to make platformers ever again.
Yeah. But that's it for our PlayStation news.
Oh yes. Now we have
Xbox Direct.
absolutely the direct kicks off with the year of the ninja of the Ninja Master, that is Ryu Hayabusa, with Ninja Gaiden 4. It was revealed at the Xbox Developer Direct, with Xbox Game Studios publishing the title, alongside Tecmo Koei, with Team Ninja and drumroll Platinum Games. They're alive. They exist. They're doing something. We all thought that we were all like, what's going on with them? This is what they've been
Losing all
working.
their talent. That's what's going on.
They are working with Team Ninja to make a grand return with Ninja Gaiden. And it's coming out fall 2025 across multiple platforms, including PlayStation and PC. But it's also launching day one to Game Pass, and to surprise everyone, Microsoft and Tecmo Koei announced that Ninja Gaiden 2 Black is shadow dropped on multiple platforms and is day one on Game Pass right after the direct. And Ninja Gaiden Black 2 basically combines almost all the content from Ninja Gaiden 2 Sigma, like an expanded re-release that came out on PS3 and was again re-released in a collection that came out years later on Xbox One, Switch, and PS4, with like updated visuals using Unreal Engine 5 and restoring elements that a lot of people really wanted from Ninja Gaiden 2 that was kind of trapped in the 360 version, such as blood, dismemberment, NPC amount, etc. And I just started playing it, but a lot of people really like it, and it's awesome to see the return of the Ninja Master. But regarding information on Ninja Gaiden 4,
This year.
it's this year. First of all, That is insane. And secondly, it looks like what.
Did you see when they called it a first party game?
Yeah, they called it a first party game
It's
because
not. It's second party.
Microsoft is publishing it, and I think this is like the underlying story that I think more people are gonna probably pick up on. This is how Microsoft is gonna handle getting third-party companies to work with them and bring their big AAA things into Game Pass. Because why would any third party want to put a game in Game Pass and lose sales on Xbox? The answer to that is very simple. Microsoft publishes the title and they release it on everything. Because that's what they're doing now. They're a third party publisher that happens to have a console. So this
I just gotta say, Komi Tecmo is very, very mercenary.
Absolutely.
PlayStation just published Rise of Ronin last year.
Yep.
And look at the Xbox publishing their game.
Yeah, and then just look at the work with Nintendo. Tecmo Koei.
It's not even being made by Team Ninja, it's being made by Platinum as well.
It's a collaborative effort. And it's really, really cool to see that. And I think this is the start of Microsoft working with Japanese publishers to kind of get games that they are not 100% confident in off the ground and get into more people's hands. And this is really cool to see. But what do you think?
I don't really have any relationship with Ninja Gaiden, but it did look cool and happy for the fans.
Alrighty, and the follow-up to Ninja Gaiden, which probably should have just ended the show, to be quite honest, was South of Midnight, with getting a new story trailer going into Hazel's plight and the new magical world she found herself in.
The jump of hype I saw on people's faces. Oh, the transition was wild.
I loved it. I loved everything about it.
I was excited, but you could see a majority of people kind of lost interest.
This was a case of Microsoft needing to reshuffle some announcements around. But South of Midnight is launching the beginning of April this year. So it lines up with a lot of the theories of this game is further along than most people realize. Because they were doing a ton of gameplay clips and everything November, December. So the release date was probably sooner than later. So it's literally just a couple months from now. So that is awesome. And following up South of Midnight, what do you think about South of Midnight?
I don't know. I feel like this trailer didn't do much for me. The last trailer did a lot better.
Well, hopefully the game lands when it releases early April. But what's coming out towards the end of April?
So far, I want to say the story has some super deep story.
For South of Midnight
yeah.
The story looks really interesting in South of Midnight. I don't
know. It's just the area gets flooded and there's magic now. That's all I've seen. I hate to say it, but it reminds me of Forspoken.
I think it's different.
It is different, but it has a little similarity of like a modern person being thrown into a fantasy world.
I think the major difference, I'm trying to be reserved here. The thing, because I'm trying to...
I am excited for South of Midnight, to be fair. It's just, that's kind of a vibe I got.
I think the core difference is...
It's very different, to be clear. It's just, that's one similarity I did kind of feel.
I think the major difference is, though, with South of Midnight, you have people who... I'm going to be blunt. Know what they're talking about in terms of the culture and what they're representing.
Oh, yeah.
Whereas Forspoken literally just felt like...
They fly now?
Oh, God. It just feels like the writers just basically threw a character in there and they just didn't really know what to do with the character.
The Japanese writers were writing an English thing.
The opening is just ridiculous. The opening of that game was ridiculous.
I'm moving things with my mind.
I'm moving things in my freaking mind. Oh, my God. The sad part is, if you play it with
I swear, if you have a cell phone joke in South of Midnight, I'm going to lose it.
They won't. They won't because they have actually decent writers working on that. But another game with good writing is Claire Obscure Expedition
This
33.
is all I have no turn-based hype.
Well, what makes this game very exciting is that it melds turn-based with real-time action combat, where you time button presses with various attacks, and you have a very deep dodge, counter, and evade system, which looks like it's going to take mechanics that you would normally see in a Paper Mario game, a Mario and Luigi game, and dial it up to 11. And then you also have like a big budget like feel in terms of you actually have an overworld you can explore that you would see in like a traditional like Final Fantasy game back on a Super Nintendo or something. And that hasn't been the case for traditional turn-based RPG games in years. Even something like a Metaphor, which was a big budget turn-based title, didn't have a fully explorable overworld. So seeing this in a turn-based game again is pretty big for a lot of people. And the story looks good. Our man Ben Starr plays a character in the game. It's gonna be a great time. Day one Game Pass coming to multiple platforms, and we're gonna wrap the Xbox Developer Direct with some Doom. Bad transition, I apologize. But Doom's the Dark Ages.
Doom, just not doom and gloomy this time.
Yeah, no doom and glooming. Actually some good dooming.
Oh yeah.
Jesus.
Doom the Dark Ages.
I think you take over with this one, man. What do you think?
I'm not a Doom fan, but I thought it looked very impressive. The gameplay is very different because they were saying during the direct was the last game was about height and movement. This game is about standing your ground.
Basically,
it's an interesting move because it kind of disappointed me in a way. Kind of like the focus on movement.
For me, it just tells me, oh, I can actually play this one now because I tried.
Yeah, there's a game speed slider for you.
I feel it's not even the speed. It's just like, with the problem, not even really a problem. The main thing with Doom Eternal that was very different from 2016 and the older Doom games is it's not just you're fast. It's like you're using the flamethrower. You're using rockets. You're dashing every 5 seconds. You're jumping everywhere.
Yeah, moving.
It's overwhelming, especially with the high difficulty. And I tried playing Doom Eternal. I genuinely did. I just could not get a feel for how fast and how overwhelming everything was. Meanwhile, something like
if they had a game speed slider, you could have played it.
But unlike 2016, which was basically just a modern take on the classic Doom games, and with this new one, it feels like they're taking like that they want to make more people play modern Doom, and it's something that looks really cool. The shield looks sick. The melee attacks look sick. The exploration stuff they alluded to looks really exciting, and using a freaking mech and riding a dragon, bro, that is so freaking metal. Let's go. Coming out in May. Very soon.
No multiplayer.
That's a good thing, I guess. They get the focus.
I think they said up to 30 hours.
I didn't even see the hour length. All I know is that it looks really good, and I'm looking forward to playing it.
Xbox fans are eating well.
Yes, and PlayStation fans, because everything but South of Midnight is coming to PlayStation fam. So hope you guys have fun.
Not yet.
Alongside us. But what's also coming to Game Pass is interesting lineup of games in February.
Crash 4.
Yes.
I love it crashed.
Yes, Crash Bandicoot is returning to Game Pass in February with Crash 4. It's about time. NFL 25 and a couple other games. And Crash 4, I think that's a really good inclusion because it is one of the best.
I didn't even realize it was on Game Pass already.
No, this is the last like toy like this. The only exception being Crash Team Racing Natural Fueled. This is the last like Crash / Spyro project left for Xbox to bring to Game Pass from Activision. And the only reason that Nitro Kart isn't coming to Game Pass yet is there's no PC version, and Microsoft isn't paying for a PC port of that. And they want to have games day and date with PC and console. So we'll see what happens with that. But Crash 4 is a great game. It's a fantastic game. It does so many things right. The platforming is great. The visuals are fantastic. The music is great. If you feel a sense of accomplishment for getting a lot of the collectibles, the other playable characters are really fun, and it's just a really great game. Getting 100 and something percent is nonsense, admittedly, and it's very frustrating. But just casually playing it and just collecting what you can along the way, fantastic experience start to finish. And anyone who hasn't played Crash 4, you gotta play it. You gotta play it. It's a great platformer. If you love 3D platformers and really enjoy the older Crash games, this is a fantastic successor to those titles. But what do you think?
I think I was surprised it wasn't already in Game Pass.
It just kind of shows.
PlayStation got like 3 years ago or something.
It released in 2020 on PS4 and Xbox One. It released in 2021. Yeah, I'm right. That's correct. Then it released about a couple of months later on next-gen platforms and Switch and PC. So it was a bit of a staggered launch, admittedly, but yeah.
Speaking of some Xbox games, Starfield and Fallout 4 are coming to Switch too, apparently.
Oh, yeah. And let us kind of lump everything about the multi-platform stuff with this. So in addition to those games, we're also going to be getting games like Hellblade 2 and Gears of War, which supposedly is the Ultimate Edition. They'll be coming to PlayStation this year. And Phil Spencer himself confirms more Xbox games will be going multi-platform. And this makes a lot of sense. Xbox wants money, they want more sales, and they want more revenue. And if Xbox people aren't buying the first-party titles, they know Switch and PlayStation people will. And I feel like it's definitely like people are gonna feel like how many Sega people felt when Sonic was shaking hands at Mario back in 2001 when Sonic Adventure 2 and Sonic Adventure 2 Battle came to GameCube and Sonic Advance came out on the GBA. Mm-hmm. It's gonna be like, what? This is happening now? Oh, okay, I guess. This feels weird. That's what's gonna happen when you see Gears of War and Halo on Nintendo and PlayStation. Something like Hellblade 2, the Bethesda games, the Activision games. It just returning to what happened before. Not really that surprising. It is what it is. But when you get like the burger, fries, and shake, you bring it to other places. It is literally like it's the kind of the equivalent of you're going to McDonald's and someone is selling you a Whopper. It's like, what's going on here? This feels weird. But that's how Microsoft's going to afford bringing this stuff to Game Pass, and we will see what happens. We will see how everything turns out. But
speaking of some Microsoft, Activision is report regarding financial performance is missing context.
Yes, so basically this whole situation is the initial report was Xbox was met with an ultimatum back in 2021 from Satya Nadella, where very similar to the infamous time during the Xbox One era where the Xbox division was being threatened to be shut down. Satya had to basically reach out to the Xbox division and said, what's your plan to save this? And Xbox suggested this, that, and the third. And that apparently was something that had to happen again during Xbox One, Xbox Series X generation. And keep in mind, 2021 was when they had a lot of really good games. Psychonaut, Halo, Forza Horizon, I'm getting things mixed up. I apologize. Forza Horizon 5, Flight Simulator, like Psychonauts 2, all these really great games. And this was still something that was being discussed internally. And Microsoft and Activision came out and said, no, this isn't accurate at all. So it's probably somewhere in the middle in regards to what's really going on. And this kind of ties into the the fact that Activision's acquisition hasn't really helped Game Pass all that much. They report claims, and part of me is kind of like, well, there's multiple layers to this. First of all, the entire Activision slate isn't even part of Game Pass yet. A good amount of it is, but a sizable amount still isn't. And the incorporation of all Activision's titles has been glacially slow, with the only exceptions being like the promise of Call of Duty coming to Game Pass happening. And but again, Call of Duty's a big franchise, and the fact that didn't really move the needle too much in terms of the Game Pass numbers, supposedly, is
not shocking.
Not shocking, and it definitely should. It just justifies Microsoft's decision to go multi-platform even more. Unfortunately, they want money, and if Xbox people aren't giving them the money, they're going to get that money from other sources. So, I mean, you said it yourself. You bought Call of Duty on PlayStation.
Yeah.
And you have an Xbox. You could have played it on Game Pass, but like, no, I want to play it on my PlayStation.
Yeah,
You're the example.
I don't want to have a subscription I don't need.
Yeah, exactly. You're the example.
No guilt. I use PlayStation Plus, but Game Pass I barely use. So.
You got to stack up, my good friend.
All right. Halo expected to announce a new game this year, and I think we all know what game it's going to be.
Halo: The Master Chief Collection coming to Nintendo Switch.
No. Halo remake.
Well, that too. Actually, that kind of brings.
It's a new game, not port.
That kind of brings a whole new wrinkle to this whole situation. Then, do you think the Switch gets the Master Chief Collection and PlayStation gets the remake, or is it vice versa?
I don't know. I think I heard the collection is coming to Switch and PC, or Switch and PS5. Sorry. I wouldn't be surprised if the remake comes out next year.
Next year's the anniversary of Halo, if I understand correctly.
The remake would probably come next year, and this year they release the collection.
Maybe they might have the remake be a timed exclusive on Xbox, kind of like Starfield. No. Wires Crossed. Sorry. Indiana Jones.
I don't see it.
I guess
we'll think they're two separate things. Phil Spencer confirms more Xbox games will be multi-platform. Shocker.
I know, and we went over this at length already, but it
is what it is. Give up.
It is what it is.
Bros. Hellblade 2 and Gears are coming to PlayStation this year.
Will you be playing Mr. Maddie's favorite game of all time, Hellblade 2, on PlayStation 5?
I played it on Xbox and never again.
I'm just going to have a lot of curiosity of how it runs on Switch 2 if it comes to that. I'm like, is this going to blow up?
I don't think it's coming to Switch.
I don't think so either, but that'll be wild to see.
But yeah, Gears of War makes sense. Hellblade 2 kind of doesn't make sense to me because that game is not going to sell that many copies, in my opinion.
No, not really.
Speaking of budgets, Activision disclosed the budgets and sales of Call of Duty titles during a lawsuit.
It's insane. Oh my god, the numbers are nuts.
Let's just start. Black Ops 3, 2015, 430 million. 43 million copies sold. Modern Warfare 2019, 640 million. 41 million copies. Black Ops Cold War 2020, 700 million. Sold only 30 million copies.
Only. Like Call of Duty is crazy how it sells, brother. Like, it's God bless them. It just prints money.
People wonder why it's not exclusive.
Yeah, it makes perfect sense why it's everywhere, and it's gonna imagine the numbers it's gonna get when it comes to Switch.
Oh
Oh
yeah.
my God, that's gonna be
And Call
nuts.
of Duty is an expensive beast.
Yeah, they also have to keep in mind a lot of studios work on Call of Duty. It's not just one of the teams. A lot, like the entirety of Activision, if I remember correctly, had to put a lot of their projects on hold to just help out with.
It's a well-oiled machine.
Yeah, but speaking of machines, there's a new machine potentially coming on the horizon, and that is the Xbox Prime. And it's coming out in 2026, according to a new rumor. I'm going to be transparent. I am not going to buy a new Xbox unless it's a handheld.
I'm not gonna buy an Xbox even if it was a handheld.
I have my Series X if I'm good with the console side of things.
I just can't. Xbox Prime at the moment, consoles don't matter the most for you. I just can't. What a terrible name.
Hey, is it?
Your Prime is over, buddy.
Come on, you gonna get your Xbox Prime? You're gonna get your Prime energy drink? Come on, it's a
You
match
ain't
made in
Optimus
heaven.
Prime. You Optimus Beta.
What would you know? What? Let's have some fun here. What would you call the next Xbox?
Xbox PC.
I hate you. Anyway, let's move on.
All right, how about Steam Box?
We're gonna move on. So,
I don't know, something easy. Xbox 6 or something, bro. Stop with the weird names.
Xbox 720.
The 720 is better than all their names they've had in recent years.
It'll be a successor to the Xbox 360 and the Blades. UI returns. Let's go. Nostalgia at its finest.
All right, this is your expertise. Carry it away.
Oh yes, so Nintendo finally, probably due to pressure from the leaks, announced the Nintendo Switch 2, the Nintendo Switch DOS. You know, it is the next Nintendo entertainment machine that is portable and a hybrid. So the new Nintendo Switch is a little bit bigger. It rumors indicate that is reportedly in between a PS4/PS4 Pro and an Xbox Series S. Though Nintendo didn't give any clarification on the specs. Um, in the trailer, though, they revealed how the Joy-Cons work, and so there's a new mechanism to kind of keep them locked in place instead of how they were in the original Switch. Instead of sliding them, you just like boom. In addition, there's additional like shoulder buttons when you hold the Joy-Con horizontally, and when you hold the Joy and there's like some kind of mouse like application to the Joy-Cons, which is alluded to, not shown off, but alluded to in how the Joy-Cons move in the trailer. And the only game they show off with the Switch 2 is expectedly Super Mario, not Super Mario, but a new Mario Kart title. And the new Mario Kart title is going to have 24 players racing at a single time, and the roads are big. So that's probably going to be a new play a part in the new gimmick for the title. And Nintendo revealed that early April, they're going to not only have a new Nintendo Direct breaking down everything about the Switch 2, so that's probably where we're going to see a lot of these rumored Xbox titles, which we discussed, coming to Nintendo Switch. We're going to probably see a lot of third-party partners reveal their titles. We're probably going to see Nintendo's initial launch lineup and year one support. And most interestingly, they also confirmed backwards compatibility is a thing, where your digital and physical titles are fully playable, with some exceptions. And before people get concerned, it's most likely the very gimmicky games, like 1-2 Switch and Ring Fit Adventure. And for my good friend here who doesn't know what I'm talking about, Nintendo gimmick titles. But
Nintendo's a gimmick.
We're all gimmicks deep down. But in all seriousness,
Nostalgia gimmick, the console.
nostalgia is awesome. But with the Switch 2, if you want to get hands-on with it, Nintendo's having like a hands-on event in locations around the world following the Nintendo Direct. And they shared like a bunch of locations and like tickets you could apply for on the website. Some places include New York, which hopefully I can hopefully I'll be able to cover. I really hope I can. But in terms of like the general hype for this, there's not really too much to be excited about right now because
it was a terrible console reveal.
That too. But it's also because there's not that much to talk about right now because
Bro, it looks like I'm looking at Switch Pro.
Let's rewind the clock back to good old 2013. Nintendo revealed a device called the Nintendo Wii U, and they just kept saying a new controller, new controller, new controller, new controller. And the only thing they really showed off, now they didn't show off what the console looks like. They just showed off. Give me one moment. I'll be right back and show you what exactly this thing looks like.
Uh-oh. Arcade's going.
They showed off this. This is what they showed off the entire time.
I like how the screen is smaller than your hand.
But like that's all they showed off with the Wii U. Like so like you're saying the Switch 2 isn't hype. I can understand why you kind of feel like, whatever. But it's not this. It's not this slab of plastic that they just said, oh, that's what the thing is. People when Nintendo announced that, they just showed off like they didn't even show off what the console really looked like. That wasn't the focus. The focus was like that controller I just showed you. With the Switch 2, you see what the thing looks like. You see what the Joy-Cons are. You see that, oh, it's another Switch. It's transparent what this thing is. And I don't mind Nintendo playing it safe.
Should I call it the Super Switch?
I agree with you. That would have been a really cool name. But the Nintendo Switch 2 makes a lot of sense because Nintendo isn't stupid. Because you see, we just made fun of the whole naming convention with the Xbox. Yeah. We just made fun of that.
Yeah. Look at Switch 2 over Xbox 6.
Exactly. Like, let's look at the consoles we have this generation and this upcoming one. The PlayStation 6, the Xbox Series X and S, the Nintendo Switch 2. Now, if I told everyone those names, what would people say? Oh, that's the next thing, or like, what devices would people say? Oh, this is the next iteration.
Not an Xbox Prime.
Exactly. So Nintendo did the smart thing and played it safe in terms of the reveal and the naming convention. I think the problem is they were probably going to announce everything in April. But because of all the hardware leaks and the developers kind of down their necks and we want to talk about our titles for this, they just threw their hands up in the air and they just did this. I'm not defending them, by the way. Like, if it sounds like I am, I'm just saying, like, I get what it did. I get what it doing this to reveal like this, and they just have a very safe successor. They can't afford another this. The Wii U genuinely had decent games. I'm not knocking that, but they can't afford to go crazy with the gimmicks with the next console. They need to just make something that's going to sell and do well, because Nintendo is many things, but they're stubborn. They're not going to go to PC like Xbox willingly is or PlayStation begrudgingly is. They're going to stay in their lane, and they're going to do what they can to stay in that lane no matter what. And they know handhelds is where they excel at. So that's why they're doing what they're doing with the Switch 2. And we'll probably see more unique applications of the new Joy-Cons during the reveal. So I'm willing to give them the benefit of the doubt because Nintendo earned it with the Switch. But if we by April, it's literally just a more powerful Switch, then I'll be a little bit more understanding of people kind of like this. This is boring. So that's everything in terms of me discussing the Switch 2 at length. What do you think about my rant/Switch?
Well, I didn't care for Nintendo before, so I still don't care about them, but I think it was alright. Mario Kart. Nothing really special so far.
Understandable. So hopefully you found my whole like prop thing amusing.
I did. Can't wait for more nostalgia sequels.
I think the Switch 2 is going to have an interesting lineup, but I think the thing Nintendo's really going to have to try to overcome is, having like a genuine mix-up for some of their bigger franchises. Like, they already flipped the table, so to speak, with Zelda. And they kind of returned Mario to open-world platformer with Odyssey. I wonder what they're gonna do with some of their franchises, like because they got Star Fox, they got
patches. That's what they're gonna do. They're gonna patch their games to run like good games.
To be fair, most of like the core Nintendo games, like Odyssey and Mario Kart and Smash, all ran really well on Switch. It was just
Tears of the Kingdom ran rough, from what I hear.
It was better than I expected it to be, but it definitely.
I hear the Zelda game from last year was really bad.
Oh yeah. Major performance woes. And I think that's another reason why a lot of people are kind of excited about the Switch is because Switch 2 because Nintendo's own games won't run like dog doo-doo anymore. They'll actually run well like they're supposed to.
But yeah. Any other Nintendo topics you like to discuss?
Not particularly, save for the Kong has returned. Again, with Donkey Kong Country Returns HD, which is literally just Donkey Kong Country Returns on a new box. That's $60. I love you, Nintendo.
You know what they should bring back?
What should you bring back?
Diddy Kong Racing.
Brother. Yo. That game, man. They you know what? They should fucking do that. Sorry for cursing. That is such a good game. That would be perfect.
I love the name Diddy Kong Racing.
Oh! I thought you were trying to make like a genuine like, oh, this is a really good Nintendo game, not the other Diddy.
It's just kind of funny. The name's now associated with something else.
You know what? There's a reason why Donkey Kong is getting that slight redesign to avoid allegations, I suppose.
It's kind of funny. 1997 was just a perfectly normal game. 20 years later, different meaning.
I mean, maybe it could be a literal Diddy Kong Racing, and one of the items is a bottle of oil. I am so sorry, hardcore Nintendo fans. We're trying to be funny and failing miserably at it. I guess we're gonna wrap up the Nintendo topic before we get hated by our listeners. Anyway, sorry, Don Otaku, in advance. So, any fun?
Nintendo Switch 2 can sell more than 20 million units in its first year.
It will. It will. Or it will sell close to that.
I don't doubt it. Well,
alrighty. So I think
that's all I have to say about Nintendo.
Covered everything. We covered a lot of news. So, yeah. Any closing thoughts, brother, about for the day?
2025 is going to be the best year of gaming.
It's going to be a great year for gaming, and you're going to it's going to be your year.
It will.
That's Lord Rockstar. Assuming Grand Theft Auto doesn't get delayed.
I got many games to look forward to this year.
Yes, we all got great games to look forward to.
Yeah, you got Sonic Heart.
Yes, that's gonna be Game of the Year 2025. Let's go.
Before we go, what was your game of the year for last year?
Honestly,
Sonic's.
I would like to say that, but that's Shadow Generations was Sonic X Shadow Generations. Half of it was a remaster, so as much as I would like to give it its roses in that regard, I gotta give it to Astrobot. I beat that game, and Astrobot is a really good platformer. It does a lot of things right, and even if it kind of takes some its inspirations a little bit too firmly on its sleeve at points, it is a fantastic platformer that does a lot right. And I'm very happy that it's getting the reception it deserves. It also won Game of the Year at the New York Game Awards as well. So it is everyone loves it.
Glad to hear that. My game of the year was Indiana Jones.
Nice.
A peak game in a mid-year.
Well, you know what? We both have our games of the year, and our audience, let us know your game of the year in the comments below, or tag us on Twitter and tell us. Whatever works.
And that is it. Thank you for watching our show.